As you may know, it has been almost a year since Resident Evil Village was released, and also Capcom has officially confirmed that a DLC is in development. But there are two questions here. First, when is it going to be released? And the second, and probably the more important one, what is it going to look like? In this video, we'll be answering these questions by going over everything that we know so far about the Resident Evil Village and its DLC. But before going further, something really quick. If you're a Resident Evil fan and enjoy Resident Evil content, then you have got to check my channel out, because I'm covering Resident Evil content and news as soon as they're out, and I'm pretty sure you're going to love it. And also, we've just hit 800 subs, and you would easily make my day if you could consider subscribing. With that being said, here is everything you need to know about Resident Evil Village DLC. So let's start by discussing the release date, approximately. Well, for that, we have to return to Resident Evil 7, which was released back in 2017. And almost a year after that, actually less than a year, the game received a DLC update with 2 extra storylines and a couple of random minigames and side stories. Having that in mind, we can predict that we are actually close to the release date, because Resident Evil Village was released back on May 7th, 2021, and it's been almost 10 months. Besides, Capcom is actually trying to lure back the players to Resident Evil Village by having some reasonable offers for some of their recent Resident Evil games, such as Resident Evil Village and 2 and 3 Remake. There is also one more thing. Capcom obviously has rivals, with Dead Space Remake and Hogwarts Legacy being released at the end of the year. I don't think Capcom is going for a competition here with just a DLC. That is actually another topic to be talking about. With these being said, I assume we are actually pretty close to the Resident Evil Village DLC. Probably we'll have it in 1 or 2 months. For those of you who might not know, the leakers have said that the DLC is going to be about utilizing scrap content, which means the content that didn't make to the final cut, like Ada Wong and other villains, enemies and locations. Knowing that, and also Capcom having the assets all ready to use, there are a couple of theories worth mentioning. Now let's get to the interesting part that I'm pretty sure you were all waiting for. We all know how high potential Lady Dimitrescu was, that she could even be the main villain, but she gets killed too early in the game, making her forgettable as the player progresses the game. Also, we could all agree that she carried Resident Evil Village on her own. So based on these, I'm 100% sure the DLC has to do something with Lady Dimitrescu, even if it's a short campaign where she is the main villain, like End of Zoe, where they introduced Joey Baker and Jack Baker as the villain once more. Also, we had Chris and the Hound Wolf Squad. And since Resident Evil Village was greatly inspired by Resident Evil 4, I think there is gonna be a DLC including them as well. Because let's be honest, their story in the game was told just like Ada Wong's in Resident Evil 4, but instead they introduced Chris as a villain at first and a hero at the end. So I think there is gonna be a DLC including them, because also the members of the squad were designed pretty well and they all had their own characteristics. Maybe that is to be told in a relative DLC. Just like Lady Dimitrescu, the villagers were key characters as well, with decent character design, especially Elena Lupa. But they were all killed too early, well, just like Lady Dimitrescu, but in a very unexpected way, when they're just explaining how they used to be. So there is some story to be told here, about how Mother Miranda helped them out, or maybe even especially for Elena's family, what happened to her and her dad. And did she really die in that accident, or who is Louise's husband and where is he? Throughout the castle Dimitrescu, you'll find several notes stating how people used to be and how they worked there, and how Lady Dimitrescu and her daughters used their blood, and who these zombie-type enemies used to be and why they are like that. I'm sure the DLC has to do something with the castle as well, because the castle is forgotten pretty easily, just like Lady Dimitrescu, and you don't actually get to return to the castle Dimitrescu after the final Lady D encounter. Well, there has got to be some minigames implemented as well. Well, let's return to Resident Evil 7. The game did very well in terms of creativity for minigames. Jack's birthday, Ethan must die, and on. These extra content for sure could keep the players occupied for quite some time. Now this is what the DLC of Resident Evil Village has got to be looking for. Maybe something like the 4th Survivors from Resident Evil 2 Remake DLC, where you play as Hunk and try to escape Raccoon City and you start your way from the sewers into the RPD's gate. Resident Evil Village had quite the variety when it came to weapons, attachments and customization, so it would be even cooler to see extra weapons added to the game, though it already has quite the arsenal. The Duke is a very mysterious character who works just like the merchant from Resident Evil 4, but with more character design. Based on what he says, he and the merchant were friends. Maybe tell his story a bit more, because he's a unique character with no doubt, who we don't know much of. Anyway, these were the new info and possibilities that you needed to know. Let me know your ideas down below. And if you came so far and enjoyed this video, then maybe give this video a thumbs up and check my channel out. Because as I said earlier, I'm covering Resident Evil content just like this one. And if you enjoyed this one, then you may want to consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching.